Maybe we should, what time is it? Yeah, it's about time to get started. So I kind of think this will start out as an FAQ, and then I'm kind of hoping that maybe someone there will be wanting to, maybe do a demo or something. I don't know. Maybe not. I can do a demo if nobody else does. But we'll start out with the frequently asked or we'll start out with questions and things like that. So Karen's asking if there's sound. Can somebody like give me a thumbs up in their video or in the chat saying they can hear me? Okay, thanks. So yeah, it sounds like there's sound for most people.
There's a mute and unmute at the top of my iPad screen, and I just unmuted you.
I think you can only unmute yourself, Diana.
That's what it is? Okay.
Yeah, so now everybody sees you because you're talking and stuff, and that's how Zoom works. But that's fine. So yeah, that's cool that you figured out how the mute works. So if you have a question as we're going, or anyone else does, they can unmute themselves and ask the question. I'll remute you now unless you have a question though. Okay. Yeah, we're getting a lot of people now, so can't do the math, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like there's about 14 people online, so that's pretty great. Oh, I see lots of comments now. Okay. Yeah, there's some good comments about what to do with your volume. I mean, yeah, make sure it's working in general. You have to make sure you connect to the sound. I think it asked me when I was coming into Zoom to connect to the audio. And if you don't do that, you won't hear anything. So, yeah, I guess it doesn't pay to talk about that since people who can't hear the audio aren't going to hear it. Okay, so we'll get started here. So I had a few questions online, and I'll go over those. First, we'll start with the ones on Ravelry. There was a person who asked about the electric EOWheel 6 Kickstarter. Now, I wish I had a prototype here. I don't have a prototype. There's one at home with my wife, but right now I'm at my business at my warehouse, so I don't have one to show, but it really hasn't changed much since the videos that I've done with it. It's changed a little bit, but I'm hoping that in the next week or two, I'll get the final molded parts, and then I'll be able to show everyone sort of what's going to be very close to a final version. I've got almost all the other parts for the final version as well. I'm just waiting for a few other things in the mail. But the questions that were initially asked were, are there going to be packages with different pricing? So I've actually been working on that portion of this just earlier this week, and I started putting together the Kickstarter page. I can't share it with people until I've had it reviewed, and I can't have it reviewed until it's closer to final. But on my little monitor here, I'm looking at the Kickstarter page that I'm starting to put together, and right now I have 3 different pledge levels, and I'll just tell you what I have now. They're totally subject to change, but I mean the prices won't change too much. I still have to do a last minute figuring out of my costs and making sure that all of my numbers are right, but these are going to be close to what the final costs are going to be. So something I haven't talked about for the electric EOWheel 6 is that based on feedback from everyone, I'm going to be offering a lazy Kate for it. It's sort of that puzzle piece one. I've done a 3D print from it. Again, that's not something I have here, but I'll talk about it. There is a video on it. Let's see. Let me see if I can get this. Where is it? Spin, 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 spin. So here, I guess rather than trying to share my screen right now, what I'll do is in the chat, I'll post a link to it. So that's the YouTube video where I talk about this 3D printed lazy Kate. And I've modified it a little bit to be more injection moldable friendly, but this is going to be, you can purchase in the Kickstarter. I'm going to have a category where you can just get the lazy Kate, and it would be 3 of them. And the price I'm thinking for that would be, and all of these you'll have to add shipping, and I haven't figured out what the shipping is for each level, but the price without shipping will be $20 for 3 of those injection molded lazy Kates. Then you could get the price I have currently for the electric eel wheel 6 is $199. And that will be with the foot switch, the power switch, 6 bobbins, and sort of all the other stuff that like the electric eel wheel 5.2 came with, or most of it at least. And then there's an option where you can get both of those, and that's just the sum of those 2 prices. So that would be $219 currently. And I'm trying to figure out how to allow people to order multiple packages and things on Kickstarter. They don't have a really friendly way of doing that. I've done multi-packs before. I may just end up doing that again. It works, but it adds a lot of different levels. Okay, so that was that question. The next question on Ravelry was, let's see, the next question was, mentioned a deluxe model. Oh, yeah. So a long time ago, I talked about sort of this very high end, or for me at least, higher end spinning wheel that would have like an auto flyer, and you could connect to it with your phone, and a whole bunch of other higher end features. And the question is, am I still working on that project that would sort of be after the electric eel wheel 6? And I'm not currently working on it. I wouldn't eliminate that from my list of things that I'd like to do sometime. And I do keep looking at the auto flyer or level winder, the thing that basically moves the hooks for you automatically on the flyer, so you don't have to sort of stop it and move them. It's often called Woolly Winder, I think is the salute. Yeah, that's what it's called. When you can add that to a lot of different treadle wheels as an add-on. But I think with e-spinners that I can probably do something better. It's just continuing to work on it. So I've probably done like 10 different prototypes of that, and I'm hoping that, you know, eventually I'll get one that I'm completely happy with. So far, that has not been the case. I keep wanting to make it better. And I think that if I ever get sort of a level winding system that I'm completely happy with, that is when I would probably sort of work on a version of the wheel that sort of integrates that. Unless it's one that I could integrate into like the electric eel wheel 6. I mean, certainly if I could put it on the electric eel wheel 6, I would, but I kind of think that it may require a new design, but I have no idea what the time frame is, and I'm not actively working on sort of that version. Let's see. I think there was one more question. So the last question was, do beta testers have sort of a final version of the electric eel wheel 6? And no, they don't. I have sent out, I think, 3 different versions to beta testers at this point, but all of them have been 3D printed models, and they're not super close to the final. They function really well, but I think the final will be better than even the prototypes I've been sending out. So as I said a little bit earlier, I am hoping to get those plastic parts in so that I can make ones that are very close to final. And once I do that, I would certainly send those out to a few of the beta testers. Let's see. So I think that's the questions I saw on Ravelry. I've got some questions on Facebook, but before I do those, let me look here and see if anybody's got any questions. Does anybody want to do a question over video or audio? Or are there any questions in chat?
I have a question, Maurice. I don't know if it's in keeping with your agenda today, but I just got my eel wheel with the 1.1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I've spun about 2 yards and the motor's dead completely.
So do you have it with you? Could you sort of show me what you mean by dead? Because a lot of time people say dead and it's not, it's still
okay,
spins.
well, I just got a new battery. I checked the battery, the new one and the old one. Neither one of them work, it won't run. What do you want to know? I've got all elastic off.
So what happens if you turn the dial?
Nothing.
Nothing. Oh, I'm covering up some of your video. So you are using some kind of a different power cord than came with it. Could you show me?
No, I've got it. I have it plugged into a talent cell, 8300 on 9 volts.
So that cord that you have plugged into it is not a cord that I shipped with it.
No, this came with the talent cell.
Okay. Can you show me the talent cell battery pack in your video? Oh, so you have one of those. Okay.
Yeah. I have 2 of them. And the other one I have attached to my original eel wheel. It's the same thing. And then I had Joel make a case for it.
So, can you just try putting it in the other twist direction and see what that does?
Yeah, that doesn't work either.
So it's just
sure I've got it on. Okay. Nope.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, wait. All right, now in the Z, it's not going very fast, but it's on full speed and it is going around. You know what? And now it's going both ways, but not very fast.
Yeah, I mean, I would hook it up and see like if it really is a lot slow. So you have 2 of them, which is kind of nice for testing. If it is a lot slower still than mine, I mean, I would suggest using the wall power supply if you can, just to sort of see if that makes a difference. Sometimes battery packs, I mean, it's just another thing to try. But if
I can do that, but originally, all right, with my other one, I thought it was the battery, and it turned out it was the wall power.
Okay.
Someone sent me one, and that one worked. So I threw the original one away.
Okay. But if you can try like 2 different things for the power and then see how the motor's going. If you're having problems, I would just contact me and I can get you a replacement. It definitely shouldn't be on and off like you're describing, but if you can eliminate like the battery pack from being a possible problem, that's very helpful for me.
Well, I have 2 battery packs. I'll do that though. I'll plug it into the power and see if anything changes. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so what else? Is there a list of times that motors will run per session? This question, oh, hi Karen. I think you left the questions on Facebook. So I will use these questions instead of your Facebook questions. So you asked how long the motor should run per session. Now I've never really given a time, and that's because it depends so much on a lot of variables. I will say that for the electric EO wheel Nano 1.0, I don't think it should ever overheat. I mean, mine don't overheat. Maybe if your environmental temperature, like if you're in a really hot place or something, it could, but in general, the motor shouldn't overheat if you're keeping the tension low and you're not spinning too bulky of yarn. I mean, I certainly spun with them for hours. I know my beta testers all spun with them for hours and did not have problems. Now, with that said, one of the reasons I upgraded the motor was because I don't think all of the motors for the electric EO wheel Nano 1.1 motor or 1.0 motors are sort of the same. And I think some of them would overheat easier than others. So if that's the case, and it's you're having a lot of problems even with really low tension, then I did send out replacements to people who requested them. I do think that that's much less of a I don't think that's a problem at all with the new motors, as far as I have been able to figure out. Everybody except for, so I've sent out like over 1,000 of the 1.1 motors, and I think I've only had like 3 or 4 defects. So 3 or 4 people have had problems with it, and I've replaced those. But the vast majority of people are saying that they're much better motors. So I think that the 1.0 motors are better, but even the 1.0 motors shouldn't really overheat in like 15 minutes or something. Like sometimes I see people saying that, and it shouldn't happen if you're using a light tension, you're not spinning really bulky yarn. Videos since ask of a master link of resources. So, okay, so for videos, let me see. I will try to post this. Let's see. So if we go to spin. So all of the electric EO wheel videos, there's a request for like things. So that's where all of the videos are. There's a playlist I have with all of those. And then let's see, there's my website, which is just Dreaming Robots. So that's like the main website for the electric EO wheel. And if you go there at the top, there's actually links to everything else from that central hub. You can get links to the videos. You can get links to Ravelry and Facebook.
Maurice?
So, yes.
It looks to me like you're sending the things to me privately. You sent me 2 things privately that have links in them. I think you want to send them to everybody.
You are right. How did that happen? Oh, I see. I can fix that. Thank you.
No problem. I feel special, but
Thank you. Okay, so there we go. Those links went to everybody now. Let's see. And we've got the Facebook group. I'll just put the links in here for completeness. And the Ravelry group. Okay, so I would say that those are kind of the main places that I check frequently. Like if people post questions on Facebook and Ravelry and I don't see an answer there that, or somebody doesn't get an answer or something, I'm most likely going to respond to those. The one place I might miss is Facebook because sometimes there's a lot of posts there and I don't always go back far enough to see all of the new ones, but I try to answer questions that haven't already been answered by someone else. Let's see. And then there was another question about the noise level with a 1.1 motor. So the noise from the motors on both versions of the Nano are pretty minimal. If you, I mean, you can sort of prove that to yourself by just taking the pulley or the drive belt off of the motor and then turning the motor up to full speed, and it doesn't make much noise. Most of the noise comes from the spinning of the flyer and the bobbins. So there is the biggest, I mean, I would say that the noise increase from the actual motor is minimal, but since the electric eel wheel Nano 1.1 has more speed, that additional speed will make additional volume. However, if you spin at the same speed on both versions, it should make almost identical amounts of noise. So that's kind of the answer. I would say that, you know, so I mean, the summary is the 1.1 motor is the same noise unless you go faster, and then it's going to be a little bit noisier just because everything's spinning a little bit faster. But in general, it's pretty quiet. And there's a great, on the FAQ page for the Nano, let me just go get that. If the noise is bothering you and you haven't like gone to the FAQ to look on how to solve that, there's a great video, and I'll send the link to that here. I mean, it's posted frequently on Facebook and Ravelry, so there's a good chance you've seen it already. But let's see, we'll put this in the links for everyone. So that sort of walks you through. I like that video a lot, and I didn't make it, but who was it who made it? I forgot what her name is. Oh, Vampy is what she goes by on the forums and stuff. I like it because she like sort of explained like the thinking of what you do as you're trying to make it quieter and quieter. And that's good. I mean, it just sort of walks you through most of the different ways I have gone through to make them quieter. And I mean, they're not very noisy, I don't think, right out of the box, but some people are more sensitive to noise, and like those additional changes are things you can do to quiet it down. Let's see. So that answers those questions. On Facebook, I think there were a few others. Oh, there's a question about like the arms and how they can sometimes tilt in towards the bobbin a little bit, or sometimes they can tilt out a little bit. And I mean, that's normal. The reason they do that is because of the way I had designed it. To reduce cost, I kept sort of this flyer portion separate from these flyer arms, and then the flyer arms get sort of screwed in to the end. And just by virtue of how the plastic sort of meshes together, it's not always going to be perfectly straight. So I just don't worry about them if they're a little bit crooked. Now, if they touch the bobbin or something, there's something I'll send. If they're touching the bobbin, then it's going to affect spinning, and that's not acceptable. That means we missed that in our before we shipped it out. We should have caught that and not shipped that one out. But an easy fix for it, if that does happen, is to unscrew the flyer arm and then just flip it around and then screw it in the other way. And oftentimes that will fix it. Or if you're having that problem, it is quite rare, and I'll ship you additional flyer arms. I have spares. So that's something I can do if yours is bent to the point where it's actually touching a bobbin. But if it's not touching a bobbin, it's not going to affect anything. And let's see.
Is there a break-in period with these?
They will get quieter oftentimes as you spin more. And that's because if you sort of take off the bobbin, I guess I can do that. Let's get this in the video. So there's this little plastic seam on the flyer, sort of right here on both sides. And that's something in the video from Vampy that I sent out. You can actually go through and remove that. This is just normal how injection molding works. There's always going to be these mold lines or seams on there. And that's one of the sources of the noise. You can smooth that with like a file or a piece of sandpaper, or if you simply run it for a while, it gets quieter. And that's, I would say that's like really the break-in thing, break-in period, if there is such a thing for these. Does that answer your question?
I just wondered if it would get faster, because now this is going, it's not very fast. My 1.0 is faster.
Okay, that's definitely not normal.
Okay.
Is it
Well, that's
slipping?
good. I got a second motor, and after we get off Zoom, I'll put the other motor in. I bought it for my 1.0. So I'll put the other one in and see what the difference is. And
Okay.
then I'll email you and let you know.
Yeah, the things that could make it slower, I would check the belt and make sure the belt's not slipping either on the motor pulley or on the flyer here. That is something that has happened before. And if that's causing the slowness, I can send more belt. Like it sounds like something's wrong there, and we should probably debug. Like if you can identify what's wrong, I can send out some replacement parts, because there's no reason a 1.1 should be slower than a 1.0. It should be significantly faster.
I'm using it right now, but it's a matter of fact, I put in the switch just to see if that worked, and it works all right, but it's real slow.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get that figured out.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Let's see. Okay, I think that mostly catches us up on questions. Are there any other questions that people have? There's something I have here I can show people that's new. So I was talking about this. So this is the, let's see, how does that look? So this is the yarn counter. It doesn't have the case because I'm just working on the new software today for it. But this is sort of the screen and the keypad, and then a prototype circuit board in the back with some batteries. And this will go into that case that I sort of showed on a video. So this is the device that's going to measure how long your yarn is by sort of running it through this pulley system. So that's been something that I've been spending any time I'm not working on getting the electric wheel 6, then I'm working on this. And the software is progressing pretty good. I would say it's about not very far, 20% done or something. But everything seems to be working. I've already ordered a new round of the circuit boards because I found a bunch of bugs on this first version that make it hard to use. But with the second version of circuit board and closer to final code, I'll probably do another YouTube video, or maybe if we do more of these videos, I'll just demonstrate it in there. But right now I need to plug it into my computer over there, and I can't really show it working. But it's got a few of the menus implemented, but nothing's like hooked up with actually monitoring the rotating pulley and measuring yarn length and stuff. I'm still working out the algorithms for doing that efficiently. But yeah, let's bring this back up. So there's a power button, a reset button, a menu button, and up and down buttons that sort of work in the different menus, and then a display, and you'll be able to pick like meters and yards. So if anybody has any requests for things I should include in the software, that would be a good thing to talk about. I'm going to see if I can bring up my menu system plan and sort of tell people what I'm planning to put in the menuing system. So there will be the main menu that's sort of with 5 digits displays the meters or yards. So it would go up to 99,000 yards or 99,000 meters. So like basically 100,000 yards or meters, which is a lot, right? That's like 100 kilometers worth of yarn. I think that's a lot. Should be more than enough digits, I'm hoping. There'll be a way of counting up. So you can either have it just sort of count as you're going, or you could have it count down. So you could say, oh, I want to count 1,000 meters of yarn, and then start pulling it through or winding it onto your bobbin or whatever. And there will be, there is a little speaker in there, so it can beep when it sort of reaches 0, or it can beep at certain intervals of yarn if you're counting up. You'll be able to select meters and yards. Oh, go ahead.
Will it go either meters or yards?
Yeah, there'll be a menu to select if you want meters or yards.
That would be great.
You'll be able to turn off the beeping if you don't want to be annoyed by it. And I think I'll have an option to have beeping for the buttons as well. So like, I mean, the buttons here, I'm actually quite happy with. I don't think let's see if we can hear them. Maybe that came up. I don't know. But yeah, the buttons actually have a little bump. You can't really see them I'm sure you can't see them here, but they have a little bump. And then when you press them, they kind of pop down. So it's pretty good tactile feel on the buttons. But I could also make the speaker make a little beep, which is something that like the gas station pumps and stuff do, which seems like a good idea. You could turn that off again. I know some people like the sounds and some people don't. One other feature that's really important, I think, for this is that it will turn off automatically if you don't use it for a certain amount of time, and I'll have a menu that lets you pick, turn it off after 1 minute, 15 minutes, an hour, something like that. I think that it's important to not have to hit this power button, because at least I would always be forgetting to hit that. And when the screen is on, I don't have my calculations here, but it runs for only a couple hundred hours, I think. Is that right? No, even less. No, yeah, that's probably right. A couple hundred hours if you leave the screen on. So by hitting this power button, it'll last for, it actually kind of is still running in the background, but it would last, I think. So with 2 AA batteries, if you hit this power button or you let it automatically turn off, I think it's runs for 6 years or something is what my calculations were. So it basically for the life of the batteries, these kinds of batteries only last about 10 years anyways in storage. So you'll get most of the life of them. So that's kind of the plan with power management, which I think is really important with this guy. And one thing I haven't figured out if I need, but it's something I can do because it's all electrical, is I can add like a menu option to like adjust the measured length by plus or minus a certain amount of percentage. So like, say you're spinning something and you want to like put a little bit extra on there, and you, instead of like having it measure 1,000 meters, or instead of like going to 1,050 meters, you just want to go to 1,000 and know that it's really there. You could increase like the actual length by like 1 or 2 or 3% or something. I'm not sure if that's overcomplicating things. That's probably something I'll ask the community if they want that kind of a menu feature, but I can like adjust things to make it like a little shorter or longer. And maybe you'll find that there's a certain kind of yarn that doesn't fit on the pulley quite the same way as the ones I've tested with. or maybe I'll find, like, one reason I would put it on there is if I find certain yarns, like really bulky yarns, measure a little longer, a little shorter than they're actually measuring, then you'd want to be able to adjust in the software by a few percent if somebody's measuring out a lot of yarn. So I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling, but that's thanks.
Also, you could use it for like, if you know that you spin pretty consistently and you know the amount of shrinkage you have when you wash it, you could kind of account for that and then, you know, just take it straight off the bobbins onto the thing and then wash it and you already kind of know.
That is true. Like, do you know what kind of percentages are kind of normal if I, like, what's the maximum offset percentage I should go to? I was kind of thinking I would support up to like 10%, but maybe that's not enough for shrinkage.
I don't know, Julie. You're still on mute, Julie.
Right off the top of my head, I don't know what the percentage is. I would say 10 to 15 is probably a reasonable.
Okay. So I'd probably go higher than that. I'd probably support up to 20 then, just in case. And that's something we could adjust. Is that it sounds like there's another use case I didn't think about. That's a good one. So maybe I'll put it in there. That avoids you having to do the math of saying, oh no, I need 10% on 1,000 meters. So now I'll do 100 meters instead. And it's easy in the software to add those kinds of features. I just don't want to add so many that it's hard to adjust. But right now I've only got, I think, 5 menus. So it's not very hard to hit the menu button 5 times and rotate all the way through them. But if there's any other features people think should be put in the menu, certainly let me know. And maybe I'll do a poll about all of these features later. See which ones everybody thinks should be included. Oh, somebody was asking, Karen was asking, how would you know if you had shrinkage? Yeah, that would have to be something that you would figure out sort of, yeah, you'd measure it before and then you'd measure it after you washed it and you'd say, oh, it shrank by 8%. And then you could, if I add that menu to this, then you'd go in to the menus and say, oh, it shrinks by 8%. And then you would, be accounting for the shrinkage of similar yarn in the future. It's kind of a feature, I think, more targeted at people who are, making skeins to sell or something, and do the same thing a lot of times. If you're just doing one or something, it would probably make sense to just measure it after you've washed it. But there might be reasons in your workflow not to do that if you're doing a whole bunch of them. Let's see. What else did I have on the list here, Connor? I could talk a little bit about the electric eel wheel 6. See if there's any more questions coming in while I do that. So the current plan for the electric eel wheel 6, I've mentioned already the funding levels that I've currently got entered in. And I've started working on the plan for the video and the plan for all of the additional information that I put on sort of the main page of Kickstarter. I've realized that there's a lot more features than I've ever had in the past that I want to talk about. So that Kickstarter page is a lot more information dense than past Kickstarters. I have a lot of improvements that are worth mentioning. So it takes a lot of space to just sort of explain them. But I think that the video is kind of going to be the summary, and it will mention a lot of the improvements, the most important improvements. And then if you're interested, you can get more information about those improvements or improvements I didn't have time to mention in the video on the main page. And I'm hoping to do some additional videos that talk more in depth, like a video about how the Nano is different from the electric wheel 6. I know a lot of people have the Nano, and I want to explain like what the differences are and show them side by side. I've also noticed while I'm doing all this research for Kickstarter that Kickstarter videos have gotten amazingly polished. Like mine is not going to be the typical Kickstarter video. Back when I did my first Kickstarter, everything was like just a person recording a video, kind of like I've done in the past. And now they've gotten, just the production value is really high, but I don't think I'm going to spend my time and resources on that. I just want to get the information out there and let people sort of decide based on the information if it's the right spinning wheel for them. And instead of spending a lot of time on and money, I imagine having somebody shoot or help me shoot like a really high production value video. Let's see. So yeah, I think the most important feature that everybody is really interested in on the 6 is the motor. And yeah, I've mentioned this in the video, but well, I don't know if I mentioned that it's rated for 30,000 hours, but it is, which is, let's see, the electric eel wheel Nano has a motor that's rated for 500 hours. So that's what, like 60 times longer? Yeah, I think. Wait, 500.
You mean the new motor, the 1.1?
Yeah. No, yeah, the 1.1 motor is rated for 500 hours.
Okay.
And the 6 is motor. So the reason motors are rated for less time is generally because of how they're made. And the 1.1 motors are this brushed motor. And what they basically have is they have like these metal brushes. Well, they're not always metal. In fact, these aren't metal, but they're a conductive material that sort of rotates around the inside of the motor, and those brushes just sort of wear out over time. Whereas with the 6, which I don't have a prototype of here to show you, but the motor is brushless, so it doesn't have those brushes that wear out over time. It has this technology where sort of the magnetics are flipped by like transistors. It's flipped by electronics, and electronics don't wear out over time. So the motor will still eventually wear out because the bushings and bearings inside of it wear out, but because it doesn't have those brushes, they tend to last a lot longer. They're quieter. But they're way more expensive. This is by far the most expensive motor I've ever put into one of my spinning wheels. And it's just not something that would make sense putting into one of these little guys. I mean, the motor for this, for the electric eel wheel 6, costs nearly as much as everything that goes into a Nano. So it wouldn't make sense to put that kind of a motor in it, or at least it would make the price point go way up. So, and yeah, I'll probably start talking more about the electric eel wheel 6 as the Kickstarter gets closer. Currently, the target for that is sometime next month. It's definitely not going to be at the very beginning of the month, but it could be at the middle or end of next month is what I'm hoping for. And I think only delays in these plastic pieces would be the only thing that would really cause me to miss that schedule. And that's possible, but it's getting less and less likely. The company that I work with to make my plastic parts has sent me confirmation that all of the molds are working. They haven't made samples from all of them, which is a little odd because normally when they verify the mold is working, they make samples. But I think they didn't put the right color plastic in or something is basically what happened. But I'm hoping to get those shipped out to me next week or possibly the week after. But I've worked with them before a lot, so I know that they don't always hit their schedules, but I know that they're close. Like they're never off by a huge amount. So at least they never have been in the past, and I've gotten a lot of parts from them. So let's see. Are there any other questions about the yarn counter, the electric e-wheel 6? Anything else I'm working on?
A little bit. This isn't like super like important on it, but have you decided like what you're doing about like different colors for things on the 6? Sorry, we're yarn people.
Yep, absolutely. I am currently leaning towards a single black color, which I know isn't going to be popular, and I'm still open to being convinced to support another color. I'm going to listen to the feedback when the Kickstarter comes out. So the color that I know that I'm supporting is the one that won the last poll, which is sort of that same black color or charcoal color that the electric e-wheel Nano comes in. It's a nice neutral color. People tend to like it. And if I did do a second color, it would be a bright color, because I think that having one bright and one neutral, it would be nice. I'm still deciding whether all of the extra cost and hassle is worth it. It kind of depends on sort of how many people back the project. If it gets a huge amount of support, I can probably do a second color. One thing with colors that I do think I'll support is different colored bobbins, and that's something I'll probably let people pick the colors during the Kickstarter. So even if it is a black and a black spinning wheel, I think having 3 colors of bobbins, again, like I did with the Nano, makes sense, and that allows people to sort of have some color on it. But for the actual base, it'll be available in black, and I guess I'll just say maybe one other color, possibly, and that would be determined in the future by some polls. The Lazy Kates would probably follow the same pattern as the, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with, I guess I haven't thought about the Lazy Kate colors yet. I could make 3 different colors, I guess, but it's easier to just do one. I don't know. I'll have to decide if I treat it more like the bobbins or like the case. And that's something where feedback will be helpful. Like I'll probably do some polls.
I like having the bobbins be multiple colors, because then I know like, oh, I did 3 bobbins of the teal. I have 2 nanos, so I have a lot of bobbins. If I do, I know I have a certain number of bobbins in the teal, and then I can ply it with all the purple ones, and then I can help keep them in the order or keep them by ply and stuff. So I like having lots of colors of bobbins.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of why I said I'll probably do multiple colors of bobbins, but I'll have votes on it. It's easy also if I just include different color, like as long as everybody gets like 2 of each color of bobbin, that makes sort of the logistics easier. It still does increase like the molding cost, because they have to swap out and waste a bunch of plastic every time they switch colors. But the logistics part of it, which is half of the problem for me, is easier. Like the more combinations I have of everything, it just sort of like multiplies the different SKUs I have to manage in my inventory.
So when they switch them out, okay, also with like D&D dice, they take when they switch out the colors, you end up with the kind of weird half and half type things. Like I wonder if would they ship you those and you could just like sell them as weird extra bonus colors, because I promise you there are people who'd be into that.
I'm not 100% sure if they would do that or not, and nor do I know like that they would I suspect they wouldn't turn out interesting. You said for D&D or for dice, they come out really interesting looking when they mold them.
Sometimes they come out weird. Like I've bought in the past like sets of just mismatched things, and you end up with, sometimes they're weird muddy colors, sometimes they're like part of the dice is this color, part of the dice is that color. It kind of, they're you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but they're kind of like a weird mix of things depending on what they change from and to.
Yeah. So I would see, my guess would have been that they would have been muddy, because the way that these injection molding machines does, they have this big screw system. And I think that the plastics would kind of mix together and you'd end up with like a pretty clean mix. I mean, it would go from, like, if we're going from purple to black, it would kind of be purple, and then it would be this muddy color, and then it would be black eventually. And I don't know, I'll think about that. I don't like doing like a few of something. Like, one of the ways that I keep my prices sort of affordable is I set up like this system, and I can make a whole bunch, like 1,000 of something, and then it just makes the overhead of selling them a lot less. And like the store, I put tons of time into making sure that things are as automated as I can get them, so that I don't have to spend a lot of time in every order and things. And I know that's not like super popular these days. Everybody wants everything handmade, but it's just one way to get like the cost way down, or it's probably the best way. And that's sort of what I'm trying to do. I know it's not perfect for everyone, and this spinning wheel is not perfect for everyone, but it's sort of the direction I'm choosing for my business. Let's see. Yeah, people mentioned that they like the bright gold bobbins that were on, I think Joel printed those. Yeah, there's some beautiful colors out there. The problem is when I offer like different colors, I can have them, I can do votes, but like people feel so strongly about the color that they really like, or many people do, not every, maybe half of people or something really care about the colors and have a strong opinion. And you can never make everyone happy when you're going to have a limited number of colors. And like the way I think of it is sort of like there's some things that would benefit from a lot of colors, like cell phones or something. But if you look at, you know, Google or Apple, they do like 3 or 4 colors, and they're selling tens of millions of their devices, and they still only want to carry 3 colors of, you know, their thing. And I'm making, you know, hundreds or thousands of them, and I'm trying to limit myself to like 1 or maybe 2 colors for the base and 3 colors for the bobbins. So it just does really complicate inventory, because you, especially at the end, when you start selling the last few, you start running out of colors, and people are like, are you getting that other color? And I'm like, no, I'm not getting any more of that color. And then they kind of get upset. And there's been mistakes where I've sent people the wrong color wheel, and then I have to ship them the right color wheel. And that's totally my fault. But that's something that wouldn't happen if they were all the same color. Yeah, I'm very understanding. And if I could offer a dozen colors, I would. It's just not practical for how I'm making things to do that. Can you do personalized colors for an extra cost? With injection molding, that's not really reasonable. So I would say that for the way I sell things, it's not possible. However, I do release 3D printable files for a lot of my parts. And for the electric eel wheel 6, that'll be true as well. I'll be releasing bobbins. I'll be releasing a lot of all of the different dials, except for maybe the bobbin release that has a metal piece in it. You couldn't really, I don't know, I'll have to decide if it's too risky to sell one of those when it can break a lot. But in general, I try to release all of the 3D parts that I think add value to sort of my customers. So I'd like to make all of the different knobs and bobbins and stuff printable. And that's a great way to make them different colors, because when you're 3D printing, there's very little overhead to 3D printing in different colors. So if you want like really crazy colors, like maybe go with, you know, a 3D printed bobbin or something, because that's an easy way to get different colors. Let's see. Are there any more questions? So we've almost used up my whole hour. I'll probably be asking people I think that this went pretty well and there were a lot of good questions here. So I'll probably do these in the future, but probably not super often. It feels like the questions would get repeated quite a bit. And I'll be able to just point people to a video. I think oh, please. Yeah, it says I'm recording this. So I should be able to post a video of this and point people back. Maybe I'll index it, like say, this question was here and this question was here or something, if I've got time. But I'll try to do these every few months or something, maybe would make sense. Or when I'm doing like a Kickstarter, I bet there would be a lot more interest in me doing a Q&A about the product. And maybe next time, I tried to get my wife in here so she could do a demo of some of the different spinning and stuff, but that just didn't work out. She's busy right now. So next time, maybe I'll schedule it at a time when she can do things. And ooh, I see a new picture there of Joel with his 3D printing lab. Hi, Joel. Wow, that's a nice setup. Let's see. Okay, so let me just do a quick check to make sure there's been no new questions in Facebook and Ravelry. And if there hasn't and there's no new ones here, then I'll probably wrap it up.
I have a quick question, but kind of not for you while you're checking. Can people who are also spinning hold up their wheels and show what they've been working on during the meeting?
I see some people moving. That's awesome.
I got the Nitpicks Stroll Rovain. It's my second time spinning.
Yay!
Hello, Joel. I met your mother last week.
Oh, good. Good. How'd she look?
She looked good.
Good. Good.
She was on Spin In on Wednesdays.
Yeah, I'm gonna make some walk her through making some rye sourdough on Sunday. It may completely fail.
Question. Has anyone had success with plying on their wheel?
Yeah. Let me find it. I did a 4-ply fractal on it.
Do you have a video? I thought there was going to be like a video of demos or something on this group. I guess.
I didn't take a video, but I can link my Ravelry page of the project.
Oh, could you please do that? I'd like to see.
Let me find it. I did have to splice it. But you can see, you'll be able to see that. I took a lot of pictures of it. Where did I put it?
Yeah, in general, I know that a lot of people have plied on their nanos. Maybe I'll do a YouTube video of just a bunch of plying and the different techniques, although I only know 2. I'm sure there's more.
Get your wife to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Let me give her a to-do.
I've been afraid, so I've been using my Lendrum for plying, but yeah, I just didn't know whether the motor would take a little, would be stressful or add strain to it.
No,
I mean,
Go
ahead.
I
I've
liked
been
it.
able to do 2 and 3 and chain ply on my Nano. So no problem. Most of the plying I do on my 5.1 because I can make a bigger skein, but I did try it out and do ply successfully on the Nano.
Cool.
Yeah, the 4-ply I did on the Nano, and yeah, the only thing that was an issue was that I ended up having, it only has the bobbin size, but I think the yarn came out really well, even with the knots, like the splices in it, when I put it all together.
Awesome. Thank you.
It will depend on how thick your singles are. Like there's a maximum yarn thickness that the Nano can handle. And if your 4 singles are too thick, then when you're plying them together, it would be a problem. But if you're all fairly thin singles, then it'll work. It really depends, I think, on the final thickness of the yarn after plying.
Yeah, that's a goal then. That's an operator problem. That's not a Nano problem. Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything else they want to talk to the group about? We can have a few minutes here at the end of open talk if people want. Okay, then I think I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks everyone for all of the great questions. Yep. And yeah, we'll try to do this again in the future sometime, maybe when the EOWheel 6 Kickstarter is running or something. And if you ever have questions or whatnot, feel free to reach out to me or post on Ravelry or Facebook. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey.